Welcome, everyone. That was Ashoka in five-part harmony. I never thought I'd experience something like that, but that's a little kicker, exciting kicker to start this session. Welcome to the Disruptive Power of Disability, Rethinking the Diversity and Inclusion Agenda. My name is Alit Mansky, and I'm delighted to be here. I'm an Ashoka Fellow from the west coast of Canada, and I'm right now on an island off the coast of Canada, and there's a windstorm coming. So fingers crossed, wish me luck. I'll survive for an hour with electricity. For those using live captioning and who are unable to see me, I'm an older white guy, gray hair, not much of it though. I'm wearing a blue shirt, and I frown a lot, but during this session, I'm going to do my best to smile. I'm an Ashoka Fellow for creating an organization called PLAN, which is spread around the world and assists parents to plan for the future of their disabled son or daughter. My new book is called The Power of Disability, 10 Lessons for Surviving, Thriving, and Changing the World. Before we begin, for those using live captioning, you should already have those automatically in SwapCard, and if you don't, there's a link in the chat box there, and it can do many things, including increasing the size of the font. Our very short session today will be divided into 4 sections. A quick overview who we are, why we think it's necessary to disrupt notions of inclusion and diversity, what we can all do about it, and how you can help. So who, why, what, and you. So I'm going to start right away by introducing you to Raul. Raul, I'll let you take it from here. Welcome.
Thank you, Al. My name is Raul. I'm a small man sitting in a wheelchair. My height is 1 meter, more or less. I'm wearing a hat and glasses. I'm sitting in a wheelchair, as I already mentioned, and living in Berlin. The nonprofit organization we founded nearly 20 years ago is called Sozialhelden, which means social heroes. We are doing work for people with disabilities, fighting for their rights in Germany. And our maybe most famous project worldwide is the Wheel Map, the online map for wheelchair accessible places, or as we call it, Google Maps for wheelchair users.
Thanks, Raul. Caroline, do you want to go next?
To Raul's call out when we were preparing, nothing without us. And every one of us here has a lived experience of disability, and that's what's hugely important. My name is Caroline Casey. I'm dialing in from Ireland at 7 p.m. To explain, I have blonde hair, I have incredibly white skin, I have a condition called ocular albinism, and I am registered legally blind, so I can't see anybody here. I'm wearing a very ridiculous colored pink jumper, and you can hear the smile in my face. It's lovely to be here today. For my professional world, or whatever that is, the title is I'm the founder of the Valuable 500 currently. Like Raul, I've been in this business of disability inclusion for 20 years. I'm a troublemaker, a disruptor. I'm constantly restless. My obsession is that the inequality crisis facing the disability community cannot be resolved without business and cannot be resolved without business leadership. Hence, through my frustration, after many years, launched the Valuable 500. And its job is to completely, radically transform the business system with 500 of the world's most intentional and committed business leaders.
Thank you, Caroline. And Susan, welcome.
Yeah. Hi, thank you, everybody. My name is Susan Siegel, and I'm a white person with long hair, blue scarf, and I've got my artwork in the back in my room, and I'm calling in today from Eugene, Oregon. And I self-describe as a wheelchair rider and a passionate disability advocate. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Mobility International USA, which is a nonprofit organization, a disabled people's run organizations. And our mission is to advance disability rights and change. We have alumni in over 135 countries who've gone through our leadership programs. We're trying to get more people with disabilities to build that pipeline of leaders so that they study abroad and become citizen diplomats. We work with disabled women in 89 different countries through our WILD program to be loud, proud, disrupting the status quo and be showing that disabled women are leaders and having a say in this world today. And we work in the field of international development, trying to get more international development organizations to include people with disabilities. And we do some consulting to change the world. And I'm absolutely thrilled to be on this panel and hoping to see Ashoka take the lead in disability inclusion. So thank you.
Thanks, Susan, Caroline, and Raul. Now, let's just get right to the heart of the matter. As Caroline said, our theme today is nothing about us without us. It's a mantra of the disability movement in many parts of the world, and it's the subtext to rethinking and redoing, refreshing the inclusion and diversity agenda. So let's get to the why. And Raul, do you want to start us off? What is it that drives you, that makes you passionate about scrambling things up, moving beyond where we are now?
Well, when I started 20 years ago, I was kind of naive. I was thinking that through showing solutions, people will change their minds or change their behaviors, opening up the buildings or companies for people with disabilities. And after 20 years, I have to admit that it doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like showing best practices. What we here really need is more legislation and more pressure on companies, on politics, that people with disabilities get the same rights and can fight for their rights like non-disabled people never have to do. And well, I'm really looking forward for a world where people with disabilities can just do what they want, like you, for example, Elle, might do without having a disability or being a white man. And the thing is that non-disabled people are telling me every time and every day that the most important point is raising awareness and breaking barriers in the head of someone else's or my neighbor. But I don't believe in this anymore. I don't believe that through awareness raising we can change anything. What we need to do is to come a step further. And when we compare it to communication models, like in advertising, there's a model that's called AIDA model: awareness, interest, desire, and action. And when we are still talking about awareness, we are not talking about interest in people with disabilities. We are not talking about desire of hiring people with disabilities or letting them feeling welcome. And we are not talking about action. So what can we do? And I hope that today we will come up with some ideas for all these people in the audience who have power and who have the power to change something to make a difference.
Raul, can you repeat those four steps from awareness to action again?
Awareness, interest, desire, and action.
Thank you. We'll pick up on that. But Susan, can I go to you next? And what are your thoughts about this challenge, this frustration, this enough already?
Yes, well, yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'd just love to build on what Raul said. The terminology that we're using is that inclusion has not worked. Everybody has been talking about inclusion and doing workshops. And so what we're talking about is moving from inclusion to infiltration. And what that means is we work with thousands of people with disabilities around the world, and we're saying do not wait to be invited to a program. Do not wait if there's a HIV prevention program or violence against women program or a leadership program. Those are your program, and people with all the go and infiltrate and say, these are our programs. And we're also talking about reverse infiltration, which has a lot to do with Ashoka, that if you truly want to have people with disabilities, that you need to have a very specific plan and do some outreach, and that there is no program, whether you're talking or business, including people with disabilities. And so as I think Carolyn has said, it's not so much nothing about us without us, it's like nothing without, like things should include people with disabilities. And we're also talking about that you cannot budgeting for income, that every program, we're not talking about disability specific program, every program needs to put 1 to 3% of their budget for reasonable accommodation. So people who are deaf can have interpreters, so people who are blind can have technology, so it's accessible. So that has to be an integral part of every budget. And then finally, I'll just say that you need to really partner with disabled people's organizations, disabled women's organizations when buying for people with disabilities. And I agree with Raul, of course, Ashoka, that we're looking into not attitude change, but behavior change, and legislation and policy is a great way. So I'm going to end with that and just say that I think as all of us are saying, the time now is to disrupt the status quo and to do something that really is going to show really true change in this disruptive world. So I'll turn it back to you, Al.
Thanks, Susan. You cut out a little bit, so when we come back to the next session, if you want to re-emphasize some of your points, feel free to do that. Maybe that windstorm is hitting you on the West Coast too. Caroline, I don't think I need to introduce you any further. What are your thoughts, and how are you framing this? How are you looking at it?
Well, listen, come on, you got feisty disruptors on this panel, which I'm loving the energy of. Can I just say credit to, it was Yasmin LaRoche, a Canadian, who I heard from first to say nothing without us. So she stopped saying nothing about us without us. She simply said nothing without us. And I love that, right? Because it's like, this is how I feel. There's an inclusion delusion going on in the world. My passion area is about business. The scale of the inequality crisis cannot be resolved without the most powerful force on this planet, which is business. And I don't want them doing this as a tick box exercise or, you know, making it look good, because disability has been on the edges of business for far too long. And that's a delusion. I'm going to give you a quote. 90% of our companies claim in the world to be passionate about inclusion, but only 4% consider disability. 54% of our global companies at leadership level have never had a conversation about disability. Well, I don't know about you, but honestly, that is delusional. There is a hierarchy that exists in inclusion within business where we pit our humanity against each other. This year, we're going to focus on gender. Next year, we're going to focus on, I don't know, LGBTQ, and the third year on ice caps. Seriously, there's something desperately wrong with this, but there's a great opportunity. And the opportunity I think that exists is an opportunity about looking at human beings in a fully inclusive human way. But I am not interested in excuses or priorities or conversations anymore. And when we launched the Valuable 500, the whole intention is to get leadership accountability, to equalize and to integrate and to infuse disability inclusion across their supply chains and to have measurable outcomes. No CEO can turn around and say anymore, well, it's, you know, my chief diversity officer or my chief HR officer. In the shadow and the light of a leader, leaders make choices. Those choices create culture. And for me, we need to stop the excuses, stop pitting humanity against each other, stop the hierarchy, make commitments that you stand by and that you scale. Because actually, there is no way we can have an inclusive world without the 1.3 billion people, and that's probably a conservative number, who are meaningfully at the table. And I'm going to end by saying, I am tired of people saying we need to have more chairs at the table. So this is my suggestion. Why don't we just break up that table and go back around the campfire where we have an ever increasing circle, and remember that we are human beings and every single one of us has a space to be there and to advocate and to be seen. And so for me, I think business is the key to that, but it's only one part of the jigsaw.
Raul, Carolyn, and Susan, I want to get to the third part of our agenda, is some things that we can do, and you've already hinted at some of those, but I want to pause for a moment and observe and express the feelings that I'm getting from you. There is it's more than a flash of anger. There's an intensity there that is emerging among disabled people around the world that is manifest in what the three of you have said. And I take this very seriously, and I'm just wondering if the three of you could just reflect on that. I mean, you've had decades of work in this field. You've tried every other way of approaching this, and you're not going to give up on reason and all of those other things. But there's something extra that's a new dimension that's there now, that's rising or is present. Do you want to just comment on that for people like me who are more, if I could say this, more observers, want to be an ally, and I think we want to understand now where this movement is. Anybody want to pick that up just to comment?
Well, maybe I just give you a few more thoughts, because and imagine we are all white. How would people feel who are refugees with a disability? And if we are so angry and so disappointed from the development of inclusion worldwide, and in developed countries like Germany, like Ireland, like the United States of America, when those countries are not making it, how can those countries lead in other fields? And when we look to countries like Sweden, like even Great Britain or Austria, there have been already solutions developed, which we in Germany are still not talking about. And what angers me most is that I get for 20 years the same excuses why it's not going forward. Like, we have to teach everyone, we have to take everyone with, we have to empower, no, we have to raise awareness, people have to love it. And I don't think that inclusion means everyone has to love each other. I think that inclusion means everyone has the right to meet each other. And if we love ourselves or the other one or not, that's up to us. But it's not up to those who teach us.
Okay.
Right.
Susan,
Yeah, this is,
Susan,
go ahead.
before you speak, we're asking if you could turn your video off, because your sound is breaking up, and we're hoping that way we can hear you better.
Okay.
Please. Sorry
Is
to
that
interrupt
better?
you. Yes, it is, definitely.
No, that's fine. Yes, and if my voice is if I'm having trouble with this windstorm, please raise your hand so I know that the sound is off. Yes, thank you. And just to add to Raul, what I'm seeing internationally is, I agree that we're not interested so much in attitude change as in behavior change. That we need people to change their behaviors, and we need very strong legislation that, that should, nowhere in the world it'd be legal to discriminate against somebody. And I think in terms of power, what I'm seeing is people with disabilities are forming their own organizations, what we call disabled people's organizations, all over the world, and are getting grants and are partnering with organizations, so they become the leaders, they become the change makers. And Leslie, I just want to say that there's a huge disabled women's movement that's happening globally, and that many disabled women have not been pleased with the organizations of men and women with disabilities. And so disabled women are founding their own organizations. And there is the leadership out there of people with disabilities. And so I'm excited when we talk about Ashoka, that is Ashoka is truly going to be the change maker, that they need to grasp this whole energy of disruption and getting more people with disabilities to lead the way. And I bet Carolyn also has something to say about this.
Yeah, I'm like Caroline's jumping in her seat.
Yes.
I have a few things I want to say to this. Yeah, you can feel our frustration, Al. And it might sound like anger as well, but you know what? It's also passion about the opportunity that currently exists. And I am so genuinely convinced, and that's where I'm putting my energy towards. Because you know what? This pandemic has been, it's just like, it can be a breakthrough. It has been a breakdown, but it can be a breakthrough. My second feeling around this is also, I think we're gone beyond making the business case in my world for including people with disabilities across the supply chain. You know, business should be reflecting the humanity to which it serves. We don't need to talk about anymore the value of the business model being, or the market of people with disabilities being $8 trillion, and insight into innovation and talent and brand differentiation. It simply is what it is. And I keep going back to Raoul, nothing without us. And the third thing for me, really, and I'm thinking about everybody from Ashoka, regardless who's out there, whether you're running a not-for-profit, you're a fellow, you're somebody interested. This is very simply right now about human beings. If you really passionately believe about inclusion, you believe about all inclusion. Okay, you can't choose. Inclusion is not an a la carte thing. You can't say, well, I'm going to choose a bit of that and kind of have a bit of that. You are a passionate advocate around any part of our inclusion agenda or our planet. We're allies for each other. And my greatest energy and hope is in the generations that are coming up right now, because they believe that inclusion means everyone. They believe in balancing our beautiful and rocking our beautiful, unique difference, as well as being part of a collective. They will not tolerate sort of people being left on the edges. And they have tools that I certainly, as a 49-year-old woman, did not have back then. And they have a voice which they will amplify. So what I really want to encourage all of us is, you don't have to be an expert in disability. It's okay that you don't know, okay? But it's not okay that you don't do. And it's not okay that you don't ask. So right now, what I'm just saying is, our job is not to cancel you out with our frustration and our anger. Our job is to hold all of us to account, to make space for us to ask questions so we can learn.
Thank you. Raul, did you want to make another point before we move on?
Yeah, maybe two small points. I want to add to Caroline that it's not only a business case, it's also a human right. Like when you put your children to school or kindergarten, they have also rights to go together to the same place like disabled pupils or children do. And it's all about the encounter and meeting of each other, and not only seeing people with disabilities or other minority groups as persons who are only valuable when they make you money. It's more. It's the encounter of each other. And the second point is, which is also for me very important, that we as DPOs, like Disabled People Organization, also have to learn and to develop ourselves further, to deal with non-disabled people, to deal with other disabilities, to deal with people with other backgrounds. And of course, it's not only up to those without disabilities. It's for every one of us a task to do. And maybe we have kind of more experience, and maybe you can see this experience as an invitation to ask for our expertise.
Right. And can I jump in here, Al, for a second?
You bet.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. So yeah, I just wanted to add too, I'm, sort of moving from the frustration to the hope that and action, we're working a lot with foundations. We've been working with the MacArthur Foundation and other organizations, and we're seeing that they are doing some things to do things differently. They are putting in their applications to say, you need to say, how are you actively going to include people with disabilities in all line item in your budget. We're seeing women's organizations saying 25% of all their grants are going to go to disabled women for leadership training. So I agree with Raul, with Carolyn, that we're looking for organizations that are going past just the words and what they're doing that's really going to create a different world. So I hope you can, if you can't see me, I hope you can hear the passion, because, you know, again, as an Ashoka fellow, Ashoka should be leading this charge.
Yeah.
Ashoka is talking about change makers. Ashoka talks about disrupting the world, being model programs, social entrepreneurs. Ashoka should be on the cutting edge of this. And that's why I think a lot of us are so excited about this panel.
Okay, Susan, thank you. And feel free to put yourself back on video in between the times that you talk. So let's move to our third item on the agenda, which we've already nudged into. And Caroline, as we were preparing for this, you had a phrase called the decade of disruption.
Yeah.
And so so what can we do about it? So let's, we've made a few suggestions, but let's see if we can zero in. Of course, there's an audience from Ashoka, but there's many fellows who are in the audience who are working in a variety of organizations. There's people from universities, there's small enterprises, people from business, researchers. So let's go to this third item on the agenda, is what we can do about it, and try and be as practical as you can. Maybe can we just kind of go around and one each, and then you can reflect on what was said and move around, and then finally, I want to tell our audience that we have left room for questions, and I've got a couple that have come through the chat box already. So I really encourage you to throw some questions on there, and we'll do our best to spend the last 15 minutes of this session in a Q&A. So Raul, do you want to start us off? Something specific, concrete? What can we do? What can somebody do?
Well, I would say that learning from people with disabilities, the best learning and the first learning is that people with disabilities are the best who can improvise on new situation. We call it adaptation. We can adapt to situations non-disabled people never had to adapt. Like when you go with the underground from A to B and an elevator is broken, what do? You have to improvise. You have to find your new route. You have to find a new way, and you have to be on point, like everyone else would do. And improvising those situations, it's a daily business for people with disabilities. And so when you hire them, for example, you can be sure that those people are the best improvisers and the best persons who find solutions for new challenges your company maybe never had before. And the second is we always believe that accessibility is only an issue for disabled people. But when you look in your living room and you talk to Alexa, when you use your smartphone and talk to Siri, when you use FaceTime, when you read your Kindle ebook, all those technologies have been developed for disabled people. And in the beginning, the idea was to give blind people the ability to scale as the letters of a book. That was the invention of an ebook. Alexa, the first developments were for people who had problems to use a mouse or keyboard when they're using a telephone or a computer. And all these technologies advanced because people with disabilities started making innovations. And by becoming mainstream, there was a lot of money involved suddenly, and the technology became better and better and better. And now everyone has this in his living room. And now imagine what? Every one of us gets older, and every one of us gets a disability, if you want it or not. You have to face it. And when when you build on our expertise and when you build on the expertise of all those people with disabilities to make great inventions every day, you make your own life better in the future.
Thanks, Raul. Carolyn, do you want to throw a couple of practical ideas?
Yeah, I think Raul's absolutely right. Can we just remember this is not a them conversation or a they conversation. This is about us. You know, disability doesn't discriminate. We will all touch it personally at some point in our lives, but also, Al, you're a parent. You know, of the 1.3 billion people, this is, you know, a mum and a dad. That's 54% of our global population here. So let's just talk about what can we do practically. The most important part for me is, number one, you don't make assumptions, and you don't have to know. What I'm really interested in, anybody listening here, regardless what kind of organization you're in, you walk out the door here today, if you were to acquire a disability, because 80% is acquired between the ages of 18 and 64, what world do you want to live in? I don't expect you to know. You don't have to know, but you do need to ask. And what you can do in your organizations right now, and just look at the business that you're in, is start asking that question. Have I removed the barriers for everybody to engage with my business, with my communication? Have I created cultures in my organizations that people truly can be who they need to be, disabled or not? Because 80% of disability is invisible. None of this is rocket science, okay? Can I just say the solutions around including people with disabilities in a barrier-free world already exist? The biggest obstacle and barrier is fear, of getting it wrong. Okay, and that's not okay, because the more that we suppress this, the less that we have a chance to share on what we can do. So the most practical thing every single one of us can do is get off this call today, tomorrow, the next few days, look at the environments that you're in and the organization, and just ask that question. Have I got barriers here where people can either spend money with me, do business with me, be in business as they are, and be in the environment and society to which I would choose to be in if it were me?
Okay. Thanks, Carolyn. Susan, and if you could...
Yes, I'm going to go ahead from Raul and Carolyn. Again, what I said before, our work has shown that you've got to put the line item for reasonable accommodation. So when you need to get the JAWS, computer for someone, when you need to make your bathroom accessible, when you need to get that sign language interpreter, you have it in your budget. It's never a question like, oh, how are we going to pay for it? I also think I agree that whatever university you are, I think there's a real need for us in universities. We teach a class at the University of Oregon called Global Perspectives on Disability. I think we really need to understand disability as a culture and the history, and so that all classes need to include that, just like they include things about other minorities, other underrepresented people, other ethnic people, because I think disability is a positive culture, and people have to get away from it always being a deficit idea. And I think if whatever you're doing, as Carolyn Raul said, if you don't have people with disabilities integrally involved with whatever you're doing, there's still some work to do. And I think all three of us are here to help make that happen. And it will be a better world, and it's a win-win for everybody.
Okay. Thanks, Susan. You did cut out just at the end, but your comment about the reframing around a positive framing, if you will, a positive culture, and this has come up so many times as we were preparing for this session, and the word declaration and valuable and whatever, and I wonder if we could take a bit of time to talk about that to folks as well, just in terms of how they could amplify this message and move the framing the way all three of you exude and represent, but know needs to happen. Carolyn, do you want to take a crack at that one first? We'll switch order here briefly.
I'm the worst person to start with this. Okay, so can I hold my hand up? And I'm sure Susan and Raul are going to agree. Can I just say, the word that often associates with people with disabilities that were inspirational. Seriously? Do you want to hang out with me? I think I'm great company, but it's got nothing to do with the fact that I'm visually impaired and I happen to be doing this job. I think we just need to have a very human conversation. If we're going to talk about the narrative or the framing of disability, look, seriously, can I just give a few data? Everybody loves data. Disability exclusion costs our GNDP 7% in OECD countries, okay? Is it not really important for us to empower people to contribute and to be self-determining, to economically participate? You know, because actually, when you do that, we don't need your pity, we don't need your charity, we need to be empowered. No, and when I say we, I mean all of us right now, because actually, the more that we can contribute, the more our potential is being reached, and we're part of our global society. It's that simple. Exclusion costs us financially, it costs us morally, it costs us spiritually. And I keep going back to, this isn't a case about us making the case for people with disabilities because we're human beings. And this, you know, this figure of 1.3 billion, it's most likely 2 billion. And I keep kind of talking about, does it make sense for us not to release the power and the potential to remove the barriers in our societies, and for us to stop having to justify why we're saying that? And I also want to kind of end with a thing, don't know about Raoul and Susan, but you know what? My disability is part of who I am. And for 20 years of my life, I hid it, okay? It's 20 years ago I came out of the closet, but for 20 years I hid it. I am now so proud that this is just happens to be part of who I am and what I do. And I'm very excited about seeing, you know, disability pride. Like, finally, you know, it's just proud to be who we are. And I think all of us want to have a sense of belonging and to be proud of all the bits of us that make up who we are.
That's great. Al, can I jump in just for a second? And thank you for Carolyn. I think the two notions that come out, that stop using preconceived notions of what's possible. And in our women's program, we talk a lot about being loud, proud, and passionate. And yes, the disability is a positive part of who we are. And sometimes simple words like an application, like people with disabilities and others are encouraged to apply, can really start changing the culture and let people know that this is what it is about. And I hope you heard that. I'm trying to combat the windstorm so you hear me. I see some thumbs up, so thank you.
Yes, we definitely heard you. And Raoul, I know you didn't mention this in your introduction, but at the end of this call, we'll give people the links to your organizations, and you have a massive digest that comes out every week that is chronicling this resurrection, the resurgence of pride and power and the like. So I sure hope people subscribe to it. But Raoul, what's your thoughts on this question of shifting the narrative?
Well, I think we have to tell the people that people with disabilities are the fastest growing minority group in the world. And not only because more and more people have a disability, but also every society, modern society, gets older and older, and people acquire disabilities. And the second is that the medicine is better and better. So people with disabilities live longer. And if we are still talking about overcoming disabilities or inspiration, we are missing the point, because what we really have to do is to talk about acceptance. And in the same way as we talk about acceptance of gay pride or women, where we are where we achieved more for them than for people with disabilities by now. And the thing is that people with disabilities are nearly the same old. Like women exist, people with disabilities exist. Like gay people exist, people with disabilities exist at the same time. And we are not making progress in this field. And that's because we are only talking about overcoming and inspiration, and not about belonging, acceptance, and welcoming. And I mean, we can learn a lot from children. Yeah, when you see a child seeing someone with a disability for the first time, you of course they are curious and they want to know everything, and maybe they ask questions you would never ask. but they do it only 1 or 2 times. And afterwards, for them, it's a new normal. And we have to learn, to relearn, accepting the new normal.
So I want to move the question now. It's actually, there's two groups I'm thinking of here. One, the next generation of disabled people, the younger generation, and two, their parents and other allies. So I shudder when I look back on my parenting of my daughter, she'll soon turn 42. She's very proud of that age, so she doesn't mind me mentioning it. About the things that I did that reinforced society stereotypes. So it's been a constant learning process, and what you're describing now describes my daughter as well. She is full-blown, blossoming, proud, engaged, etc. Do you have advice for allies, for parents, and on how we can play a role in nurturing the next generation of disabled people, if I could put it that way? Any thoughts? Who wants to go first? Susan? Okay, please. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. I'm going to shut my video off real quick. Yes, I work in the field of international exchange, even though now people are traveling because of pandemic. I think that one of the best ways of having all people, especially young people with disabilities, like non-disabled people, to have that chance to go abroad, to study another language, to live in another culture. I think that for so many reasons that builds leadership, that builds competence. And I think so many times people are using preconceived notions and not doing that. So we're seeing Fulbright scholars who are using oxygen and young deaf teenagers who are studying in China. So I think we have to really, break down this idea that it's too risky or to overprotect people, and really build a confidence in the leadership of people with disabilities by letting them have the same experiences that non-disabled teenagers have. So, I always remember we once did a horseback riding program for quadriplegics, and someone said, well, can't somebody break their neck or get hurt? And the quadriplegic riding the horse says, I think I have the right to break my neck twice.
Yeah, touche.
Carolyn?
I'm not a parent, so I have no right to tell a parent how to be a parent, right? So I really acknowledge that. But I am the eldest of parents who, when I was diagnosed with my condition in 1971, they decided to keep it from me because they didn't want me defined by my disability. And so I had no idea that I had a vision impairment until I was 17. So I think what I really loved about what Susan said is that they didn't try to overprotect me. And I think that there's something very important about that. Now, maybe we could have had a little bit more balance in my particular situation, because I'm not very good at asking for help. And to Raoul's point, this is about acceptance. But I think all of our children should be allowed to experience life in the same way. And then I also think, what can we do for allyship? And that's also making it comfortable for people not to know. I think that's a theme that I've been talking a lot about. But can I just say, if I was a parent, look at Raoul and Susan, okay? Like, seriously, I remember when I joined Ashoka and I saw what Raoul was doing with Wheelmap. Like, really? When you see that and you go, okay, look at that. And I don't mean because Raoul's inspirational, because it's actually just a solution about making environments accessible. And I was just like, that's sexy and that's cool. And I want to be like him. And there are a lot of young people in this generation, and social media is really giving voice to that. So I think it's just look around you, look around the talent and the innovation and the sass that exists and the stories, because they're there. So yeah, I am excited, and the only way we can ally is just to keep shining light on others.
Thank you.
Maybe if I can add one point, when we talk about people with disabilities, sometimes I have the feeling that people think they have to educate themselves by by reading books, study disability studies, or something about inclusion. But that's not necessary. That's really not necessary. Just ask what's needed, and just talk to people with disabilities, encounter them, and last but not least, don't don't protect us. Give us the chance to fail. Invite us to your birthday party, although you're living in the fourth floor. But together we will come up with solutions until your building has an elevator.
Yeah, preach. Totally agree. Totally agree.
Right. Yeah, this is Susan, and yeah, I agree too. And also, for those organizations who feel like they need some, like, how to make my website accessible, and how do I do this? We are doing some consulting. We're helping people make a very intentional plan, so that whether it's after a few-day workshop or several months of working with an organization, you change the things that have to be changed, the site, disabilities, the culture. So, as Carolyn and Raul said, this isn't rocket science. There's very simple solutions. So whether you can figure it out on your own or you need some help doing it, but we are seeking, and then people are getting so excited about it. I mean, I think it's a win-win situation. And I think that really is the message. Everybody wins and nobody loses. And it's the right, and as all of us have said, it's been way too long. With this pandemic, let's create a new normal that's different, but that's better. So thank you.
So I've been gently insinuated into the conversation some of the questions that are coming in the chat box. I want to tell you that people are loving your energy, loving your insight and your perspective. A lot of the chat is around culture and around social media, not surprisingly. And I'm wondering if I could flip the question around and say, who do you look to for advice or wisdom as a cultural leader? Because as we talk about shifting the narrative and reframing the concept of disability and acceptance in a different way, this is all about culture and changing habits and attitudes and beliefs. I'm just wondering if there's somebody that you pay attention to, or if there's an insight that you have about this culture engagement. I think this would be a great way to begin to end our conversation. Who wants to go first?
Well, this is Susan. I can jump in. I guess I'm not seeing, I'm not seeing one person or one spokesperson, maybe in the Ashoka frame of mind, like everyone a change maker. I'm seeing people with disabilities around the world changing their cultures. They're doing it by a woman in Armenia who's a wheel rider is now the Minister of Social Affairs. They're doing it by going into government. They're doing it by doing their own social media. Make their own wheelchairs in Mexico. So I'm seeing like hundreds, if not thousands, of people with disabilities doing that and change the culture through their local work. So I'll leave it at that for now. Carolyn might have also ideas.
Susan, you remind me that it's not leadership, but it's leaderful. In other words, it's not one person or a few people. It's all of us. It's everyone. I think is the point. So thank you, Carolyn.
Yeah, like I'm so with Susan. Like it's not one person for me. And that being said, I have to say, Al and Raul and Susan, like I knew you guys, like you're legends. Do you know what I mean? So I think one of the things we have to be careful is that we have more impact on people's lives when we meet them that we may never really know. And you don't need to be a famous superstar for that. So I do want to say that. But there is a woman I've been interested in the last while. And the reason I really like her is because she has admitted to screwing up so badly in her earlier years about some of the connotations in her head around inclusion. And her name is Jamila Jamil. And what she really asks for is permission to be allowed to screw up and fail and recover, right? And I love that. I really hope I have not caused offense on this panel, but I worry about that all the time. So for me, what I love is when people really advocate for those of us who are learning, that we might screw up, but that please don't cancel us out. Please give us a second chance, all of us, like me included. So yeah, there isn't one, there's all of us, and the capacity in all of us to lead our own lives and to learn from each other, I guess. I'm starting to sound like a cliche, haven't I? Sorry.
Raul, yeah, do you have a comment or a thought on, I mean, for Susan and I, we're in North America, we're aware of this discussion of culture and all of its connotations. You and Caroline are in Europe. There's people in so many other parts of the world that, in fact, Ashoka started in every other part of the world except, Europe and North America. So just wondering, because you span the world with your digest, how you see this issue of culture and who's shaping it, and any insights from you?
Well, when I went to school, I was in one of the first schools in Germany which were inclusive, like pupils with and without disabilities learned together. And when I left school after 13 years, in Germany we go 13 years to school. After I left school, I heard for the first time of my life that my school was not the norm. It was not standard that people with and without disabilities are learning together. And what I'm asking myself since then is, did I miss something out? Did my classmates miss something out when we learned together in the same room with different disabilities and without disabilities? Where have I been the person who always needed assistance, or haven't there also been students without disability officially who needed assistance in learning? And it came out, and when I talked to my classmates, it turned out that none of us understood the separation of people with disabilities in schools, which still exists in Germany. And I think that we can learn a lot from USA and Canada when it comes to regulation of buildings and their accessibility and their products. In Germany, we don't have this. In Europe, we don't have this. We are still lagging 20 years behind your countries. But maybe what you can learn from Europe is that the social welfare system works. Like people with disabilities in Germany get their wheelchair paid by the insurance companies. It doesn't matter if you are rich or not. So that's maybe we can share those best practices, and that would help us a lot.
So that's a great segue to we're almost at the end here, so we're going to have about a minute each to wrap up. This is usually a kind of call to action, but I think the last hour has been in many ways a call to action. Thank you, each of you, but I'm wondering if there's one specific thing that you'd like to leave your audience with. So who wants to go first? Raul, how about you? Do you want to? You're the closest to your bedtime, so maybe you should go first.
With what? With my last
last point, yeah. Something you'd like to leave our audience with, a call to action or something like that.
As I already said, invite us to your next birthday party, to your next wedding, to your next business event. When you're looking for employees, invite people with disabilities. Leave your comfort zone. We don't bite, we don't hurt you, and you will make a great experience. And you are learning a lot. As studies say that the biggest barrier is the first employee with a disability. The second, and all those people with disabilities that come afterwards are no problem anymore for your company and you.
Okay, thanks, Raul. Caroline, we've only got a couple of minutes left here, so this one will have to be short.
Get your companies or anybody you know to join the Valuable 500, and I guess my call to action: will you use your head and your hearts?
Okay.
It's very simple.
Thanks, Caroline. Susan?
Yeah, I'm going to follow Carolyn. Please check out our website, miusa.org, whether you know someone who's interested in study abroad, interested in how you can become more accessible, just want to broaden learn about disabled people, what they're doing all around the world, and contact us. And I guess my final message is let's make this a better world after this awful pandemic. Let's be sure that let's move from inclusion to infiltration. Let's everyone take responsibility for making this a better world and being more inclusive, and everybody wins. The time is now. Don't wait, infiltrate. I'll leave it with that.
Beautiful. Audience, it's very hard to have these sessions without seeing you and feeling your energy, but I know from the chat box that you have experienced something very powerful here today with the energy emanating from these three wonderful people. And we want to keep this conversation going, at least within Ashoka. And so we're committed to summarizing this conversation and reaching out to all of the fellows and the wide Ashoka network and saying, let's do disability different inside Ashoka. And let's make sure that everyone at Changemaker includes every single person with a disability in the world. So I want to thank the three of you. This was very, very beautiful, and I'm really appreciative of it. We have an expression in Canada that a very talented hockey player, we play hockey on ice in Canada, a very talented hockey player is somebody who skates to where the hockey puck is going, that they know intuitively where it is and they go there. And so, as Susan said, as we emerge out of this pandemic, if you want to know where the world is going, and if you want to shape it, then pay attention to where people with disabilities are going, particularly Raul, Carolyn, and Susan. Thank you sincerely. And I guess you can't even see us, so we can't shake our hands or rattle our jewelry or anything. But Susan and Raul and Carolyn, you can join the swap card and carry on the conversation with participants if you want. Thank you. That concludes our session.
Thank you, Al. Thank you,
Al.
Al.
Thank you for putting us together, and thank you, everybody.
All the best.
Bye-bye.